I'm going to read the story, Dining with the Vicar of Bray, from my book of Berkshire folk tales. The man who stomped into the inn yard was rather plump and looked ungainly even when standing still. He was slovenly in his dress. He looked and smelt like he rarely washed. His eyes were large and protuberant, forever rolling after anyone who came into his presence, like the stable lads who stood gazing at him. He looked confused and lost, as indeed he was, which he tried explaining to them in guttural scots. He had strayed from his hunting party and found himself alone, until he stumbled upon the bare inn. Uncomprehending, the stable lads just went on staring at this stranger, with his ruddy complexion, his skin slightly pitted by smallpox, his sparse, sandy-coloured hair and thin, trowel-shaped beard on his long, narrow chin. The innkeeper came into the yard to see what was to do. The man called out to him, "What do you have for my dinner?" The innkeeper replied, "Nothing, sir. It be Lent, and all the fish be bespoke. It's being dressed for the Vicar of Bray and his curate." The man commanded the innkeeper in a loud voice, "Well, my good man, ye up to him and say there be a gentleman here who'd be much obliged if you'd allow him to have dinner with him." Reluctantly, rather than have a scene, the innkeeper went in and grovellingly asked the Vicar of Bray if a gentleman might dine with them. The vicar sourly consented to share his dinner with the stranger rather than appear unfaithful to his calling. But he soon regretted any vestige of Christian charity he might have felt. He disliked the man on sight and came to dislike his demeanour even more. The man's narrow jaws and large tongue made it difficult for him to eat or drink without noisy and disgusting slurping and splashing. The man spoke without ceasing in a barely comprehensible Scottish accent and with a very loud voice. The man's mouth was never shut, and soggy, partly masticated repast sprayed across the dining table and place settings. The man expressed his opinions in stentorian tones with tiresome, infuriating dogmatism. He was constantly nervous, excitable and restless, from time to time springing from his chair and walking up and down on his weak legs with a strangely erratic gait. Worst of all was an aura redolent of the dung heap, which intensified in the warmth of the dining room. The man's conversation was as ripe as his aroma. He showed an obsessive interest in freaks and monstrosities of nature, and in sexual perversions. He said how he loved to listen to obscene stories and to recount them, which he proceeded to do at exhausting and, thankfully, incomprehensible length. The Vicar of Bray made no effort to hide his contempt for the man and his abhorrence at his manners and discourse. The curate, on the other hand, remained affable throughout the meal. He responded warmly to all the man's opinions, however extreme. "How true! How true!" He clapped and giggled at all the man's risque stories. "What a hoot! What a hoot!" All the while, the curate replenished the man's plate with smoked salmon, filled his glass with spiced wine, plied him with sack and syllabub for dessert, and was altogether an agreeable and attentive host. If the vicar despised the man, he despised his curate's obsequious civilities towards him even more. Moreover, he was puzzled by the curate's untypical attentiveness towards the man. Normally he was a straight-laced, easily distracted, otherwise otherworldly sort of clergyman. When the reckoning arrived, the man delivered the vicar a further insult. "Gentlemen, I left my hay, my haste, and forgot my money. Here I am without a shilling to my name." "A pretty rogue indeed," quoth the vicar, glowering at the man with distaste, "to come and get a meal from us in this way. No, no, you must settle it with the innkeeper. I shall not pay for your dinner, I promise you." At this the curate piped up. Oh, sir, do not speak thus to the gentleman. I shall pay his share, and think myself well paid for his good company and amusing conversation." The vicar looked at his curate, his eyes opened wide with amazement at such sycophantic flattery. Scarcely were these words uttered when there arose a hubbub in the inn yard, the blowing of horns, the baying of hounds, and a great shout. "Has anyone seen His Majesty? Has he passed this way?" The man promptly plumped out his chest, flung wide the balcony doors, and stepped out with a flourish. Below him 100 men doffed caps and bent their knees to King James I, as did the astute curate. The poor vicar then bent his knee, mumbling, "Beg pardon, Majesty, I did not realise." "Och, man, I'll forgive you," His Majesty replied with a roguish smile in his eye. "You'll still be the Vicar of Bray, sir."